What's up, guys? This is the review of the 2007 BMW 328i Coupe. This is the fifth generation of the 3 Series, dubbed the E90 or E92, E91, E93, depending on whether you're talking about a sedan or a coupe or a convertible or a wagon. But it was first produced in North America in 2006. There were two models available during that time, the 330i and the 325i. The 330i was the sporty version of that car. Both were equipped with the 3-liter inline-6 naturally aspirated engine, but the BMW, the 330i, produced 254 horsepower and 221 foot-pound of torque, as opposed to the 325i, which was producing about 215 horsepower and I believe 185 foot-pound of torque. In 2007, BMW released the 335i, which came equipped with a twin-turbo inline-6 engine dubbed the N54. And the lower model variant was the 328i. It effectively became a detuned version of the 330i. The three-stage intake manifold that the 330i came equipped with was replaced with a single-staged intake manifold, and that resulted in the horsepower decreasing to 230 horsepower, and torque was reduced to 200 foot-pound of torque. As you can see, this obviously is the coupe. This is the E92, and it's a gorgeous, gorgeous car. It's got that timeless design that still looks modern even to this day. It's got the long doors. It's got a long wheelbase. It's got the long hood. It's very sleek. I think it looks very classy with this Silverstone metallic paint that it comes equipped with. Again, this is the 328i model, which means that it's the rear-wheel drive model. It doesn't come with all-wheel drive. If it did, it would be the 328xi or the 335xi, whichever engine we were talking about. So it's rear-wheel drive. Comes with 18-inch rims. These rims actually were standard on the 335i coupes. The 328i coupes came with slightly different rims, but these are 18-inch rims. This particular car obviously is equipped with a sport package, so that gives it tighter and better handling than a car that would not have the sport package. And it's also made it to a 6-speed manual transmission. So if you're going to get one of these cars, particularly if you're going to get the 328i, the one with a naturally aspirated engine, I would definitely go with the 6-speed manual in that model. Not only does it make the drive and the car more fun, but it also results in faster 0 to 60 time. I think the coupe is BMW says the coupe 328i goes 0 to 60 in about 6.2 seconds. With the manual transmission, I think it's 6.7 seconds with the automatic transmission. So the manual transmission is definitely the way to go with this particular car. Let's take a look on the inside. All right, so here's the interior of the BMW 328i Coupe, and it's a pretty nice place to be. There's plenty of room. We've got the nice thick steering wheel, got extra grips for the 10 and 2 o'clock position. This one doesn't have a GPS, so it just sort of has a single hump dashboard. If it came equipped with a GPS, then you would have basically one more hump here, and there is where you would be housing the screen. Again, here's the manual. Yeah, so that's what it's all about. That makes it super fun to drive. But there's not a ton in here. It's kind of a simple interior, but I like that, and the fact that it's, you know, a fairly classic looking interior still doesn't make the car look dated. But all the materials feel very nice, like soft touch materials here, poplar wood. This comes equipped with black leather, which I think looks really good with this silver exterior. You got the push button start. Obviously, I think most cars have this now, but when this car first came out in 2006, there weren't too many cars that had that push button start, so that's pretty nice. There's actually quite a bit of room in the back. This is my car, my personal car, and I have 2 kids, and it works just fine as a family vehicle. And in fact, I'll probably do a separate video talking about why it's actually a pretty good car to have with little kids. There's certainly plenty of room in the back. I can sit in the back myself. I'm 6'3", and I have no problem sitting back there. So if we're talking about kids, you know, that are tiny, then they've got more room than they'll ever need in the back there. But that's pretty much it for the interior. Not much about it. Not much to talk about, but I think it all looks good. It's a pleasant place to be in. It's a pleasant place to sit in, and yeah, that's it. Thanks. I first purchased one of these cars in 2008. It's a brand new car, um, and I basically had to get that one effectively custom ordered for Germany because my dealer did not have any manual transmission equipped 3 Series on the lot, so I ended up ordering that one from Germany. It was a platinum bronze metallic. It was a wonderful car. Owned that until 2013, so for 5 years, and it was an awesome car. Didn't really give me any major issues or anything like that. Then in 2013, I ended up trading that car in for a 335. It's a 2011 335. That was the first year of the N55 engine, which ended up replacing the N54 engine that came in the 335s. And the main difference between those two engines was that it replaced the twin turbos that were in the N54 with a twin scroll turbo, so it came equipped with a single turbo in that particular engine, the 2001. That was an awesome car, but that car I bought with an automatic transmission, and that was the first time that I owned a car with an automatic transmission. My first car was a Mazda Protege, and that was a 6-speed. My second car was the aforementioned 2008 328i that I bought with manual transmission, and then my third car was this 335 that I bought with automatic transmission. And frankly, guys, when I test drove the car, I thought that I could live with the automatic transmission, especially because it had the flappy pedals in the steering wheel. But the novelty of that wore off pretty quickly, and I ended up literally within like a month of purchasing that car, I ended up like regretting it and regretting getting rid of my 328i. And so long story short, I owned that car for about a year and a half, and then when this particular car came on the market, the 328i Coupe with manual transmission, I decided to trade the 335 in. I was actually able to pocket some money, actually quite a bit of money on that trade-in. So in any event, I was very glad to be back in a 3 Series with a manual transmission. So just to kind of give you my impressions of the car, the E90 was what many would consider the last of the original type of 3 Series. The car itself has a very analog feel to it. The suspension is stiff, especially when it comes equipped with a sport package like this car has and my 335i had. It's also it's got the hydraulic steering rack, and what that does when you're driving the car is it gives you a lot of feedback as you're driving the car, and you can literally feel through the steering wheel the texture of the pavement as the wheels are going through, as there's different textures that you come across on the road. You get to feel that through the steering as you're driving this car, and that's been one of probably the biggest complaint with the newer BMWs, and certainly the F30 generation, is that they ended up switching from hydraulic steering racks to electrical steering racks, and a lot of that steering feel for which BMW was known and effectively made its reputation on had disappeared. So in many ways, this particular generation of 3 Series is the last of the true generations of the BMW 3 Series. And what I love about the car is that it's just gives you this confidence where you feel like you're one with the vehicle. You feel like you and the machine are almost one. And in that regard, the 50-50 weight distribution that this car has, the telepathic steering that you get on these types of cars, coupled with rear-wheel drive and just a perfect balance in the car, just makes you feel like a much better driver than you probably are. You know what the car is doing, and because you feel what the car is doing, and because you sense, when you turn left, the car goes left. When you turn right, the car goes right. I mean, there's just so much. It's so responsive that driving a car like this is just, so much fun. And again, much more confidence expiring than in driving a different type of car. Over the past couple of years, I ended up test driving the Mercedes E-Class a few times, and the sportiness of this car, the responsiveness of the car, becomes even more highlighted after you take a test drive in a Mercedes E-Class and you jump into this thing. You just know exactly what the car's doing, and that's one of the things that I love about this particular car. Particularly, when this car first came out, especially with a naturally aspirated engine, people were almost spoiled having these types of cars. 2006, 2007, when these cars came out, there are a lot of other cars that had naturally aspirated engines. There's the E46 3 Series, which is an awesome 3 Series. You still had the E36 3 Series that were driving on the road. So at the time, this car was not really a car like this. Wasn't really a novelty. I mean, there were just similar types of cars around. And then when the 335 came out, everybody loved that particular car because it was brand new. You had this turbo technology. I mean, the ordinary 3 Series effectively became a supercar, and everybody was kind of inundated with the power, with the low end torque. And if you were to go on BMW forums around that time, you'd see a lot of arguments, debates, the 335 guys putting the 328 guys down, basically saying, that's the car's slow, it's not a real ultimate driving machine, it's not a sports sedan, etc. But as technology has progressed and as more cars are starting to resemble the platform that was in the 335, i.e. they're all pretty much turbocharged. These particular cars with naturally aspirated engines have finally started being appreciated for what they are and how awesome they are. Again, they weren't, that was my sense. In talking to different people, participating in various forums and things of that nature, it's just that when these cars first came out, because they really weren't that new in comparison to what had been out before, people just weren't as impressed with them as they are now. Because now, a car like this is pretty much becoming a classic. It's got a naturally aspirated engine, which you don't really see anymore. It's got BMW's naturally aspirated inline 6. I mean, that's BMW's bread and butter. That's what made BMW what it is. It's made it to a 6-speed manual transmission. It's rear-wheel drive. It doesn't have a number of different driving modes. That's another thing that I love about this particular car, is you get in here and you buy the car equipped with a sports package, and the car's always gonna drive the same way. You don't need to be pushing buttons, going into comfort mode, sport plus. I mean, it's a sports sedan, and that's kind of what I love about these particular cars. I love the simplicity. I love just being able to buy a car that's going to have a certain feel, a certain sporty feel to it, and it doesn't change. I mean, it is what it is. I feel like with a lot of these other vehicles where you're having these multiple sporty modes, it just complicates things. And it almost, when you're driving around town, with these cars that have different types of modes, you kind of get into a situation that almost like kind of takes the enjoyment away, because you find yourself thinking, oh man, should I be in comfort mode? Should I be in sport mode? And it just, I just don't like that. I mean, this is a sports sedan. I want it to drive like a sports sedan 24/7, and when you step into this car, then that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get stiffer suspension. You're gonna get harder, more weighty steering, because that's why you bought the car in the first place. So that's kind of what I like really about these 3 Series, and I feel like many cars just need to go back to that instead of trying to be all things to all people. I mean, just create a purpose-built car and and keep it that way. The last thing I'll talk about, well, a couple more things. I'd like to compare this car and the way that it drives to the 335. And having owned both and lived with both, I feel like I have a good basis of experience in which I can speak about the driving dynamics of the two cars. In many ways, the 335 and the 328i are basically the same car. I mean, just in terms of the interior features, the feel of the car. I mean, frankly, the biggest difference is in the way that the car produces power. Now, the 335i is going to be a faster car. It's particularly in a straight line. It's got more torque, and not only does it have more torque, but more of that torque is situated at lower RPMs, right? In the N52, it was at 1200 RPM, you had 300 foot-pound of torque. In the N54, I think it was at 1600 RPM where you had 300 foot-pound of torque. With this particular car, which has 200 foot-pound of torque, so it's got a lot less torque, and also that torque comes in at 2700 RPM. So if you're trying to, drag race somebody from a traffic light or off the, the 335 is going to feel like a much faster car because it is a much faster car. I mean, it's going to have that sensation of just pushing you back in your seat when you hit the throttle. The 328i doesn't have that. But I think you also have to drive the 328i a little bit differently than you do a 335 because your torque, you get your torque higher up in the RPM range. This car and this particular engine loves to be revved, right? So if you want, this car can actually go pretty quickly once you get into the high RPM range. And when you mate that to a 6-speed manual transmission, where you can just, be in full control over the gears, it can be very fun. And in fact, in many ways, it kind of makes it more engaging because you don't have that instant power when you're driving the car. You don't just smash the throttle and go. You have to work for it, right? You have to work for it. You have to keep the gears for a longer period of time until that rev counter builds up, and then it just goes. Like once you get over 3,500 RPM, this car will move. So the 335i is definitely a faster car, but it's that's not to say that the 328i is a slow car. And with the 328i, if you want to go quickly, you really have to rev the engine. And in many ways, I feel like that makes the car a more engaging driving experience. Contrast that, with the 335i, where you're pretty much going quickly instantly, and you don't need to, it is what it is. In terms of handling and balance, the 335i is a heavier car. It's about 250 pounds heavier than a 328i. And on top of that, a lot of that weight is up front. So the 328i actually has a better weight distribution than the 335i does. And I can tell you that that's noticeable when you're going on back roads. That 328i is just a little bit better balanced, more neutral. It doesn't feel as nose heavy as the 335i does. That's been my experience, having driven both types of cars on the same type of roads, so the same type of back roads, for years. And in many ways, when you're driving on the back roads, the 335i feels like a car that's like a point and shoot car. You're not going to take the corner as fast, but once you've sort of cleared the corner or you've got all that torque down low, got that horsepower, you just smash the throttle and it kind of pulls you out of it. The 328i is a little bit different. It kind of feels more like a, like a, I don't know, like a running back. You can kind of, go left to right a little bit more easily than a 335i can. And then finally, just in terms of reliability, BMWs have kind of had a bad reputation for reliability, but I can tell you that all of these cars have been great for me. I really haven't had to do any major repair work on any of these cars. I mean, the 335 was almost a brand new car when I bought it, so it wasn't that one wouldn't expect to have to do a lot. But for the time that I owned it, it worked without any problems. The same thing with the 328s that I've had. Both of them were very reliable vehicles. I mean, you have to do some maintenance items on them, but nothing nothing unusual. So I think so long as you stay on top of the regular maintenance, you take care of these cars, it's they're gonna treat you right. All right, guys. So that's my review of the 328i. Sorry for some of the camera work. Some of these arms that I was using were not. I guess I need to work a little bit on this. My first video, so we'll get better with that as time goes on. And appreciate your watching. If you like what you see, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and there's going to be a lot more content coming your way. All right, thanks, guys.